this committee was at that committee meeting. But I guess we can approve the minutes based upon his say-so, even though we weren't there. We'll take your word for it, Jeff, but you should probably move.
It's funny, there's no requirement that you actually have to be at the meeting to approve the minutes.
Right, but I want you to tell me, hey, they're okay, I'll move.
I would be comfortable, I would move we approve the minutes without changing.
Excellent, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconds it. Any changes?
Nope.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 add something. Charlie, did we decide raise hand, or can you see everyone? Or use the chat?
I actually cannot see everyone when I'm sharing my screen, so.
Okay. So if you want to be recognized, use the chat feature. And you'll be called on by the person who's doing the presenting.
Mr. Chair?
Otherwise, any questions from anyone?
There's a chat feature?
I don't see the chat feature as long as the agenda is up there.
Oh,
I
I
guess-
got it. It's in the right corner.
Yeah, upper right.
Looks like a little comic bubble, thought bubble thing.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, this is Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Just a quick comment on the right-hand side of your screen to the right of the agenda. There are plus and minus buttons to individually zoom or zoom in or out for individual screens.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Where's that?
Okay. If you can scroll down, Charlie.
Okay.
All right. So the first order, any changes to the agenda? Charlie, I think you had one.
Yes, I'm gonna, under my report, under number 9, I'm gonna add one more topic and just give the board a quick update on the 89 study.
Okay. Great. Public comment. Is there anyone from the public out there that wants to comment on anything not on tonight's agenda? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to the action on the consent agenda. Excuse me, a consent agenda. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda. Jim?
Second,
Was that Andy seconding?
yes.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
Garrett,
All right, so next is approval of the minutes of March 18th. Again, looking for a motion.
Sorry.
You faded off.
Was there a motion out there?
I move to approve, Barbara.
I'll second.
Garrett will
Yeah.
second.
Oh, Garrett, it's already second. Okay.
Okay. Any comments on the minutes?
Amy, my name's spelled wrong. This is Jeff.
And this is Garrett. Mine is spelled right one place, but wrong two. I know two
Okay.
T's is more common than Garrett. Earth shattering.
I'll fix both.
Okay, if nothing else, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay. Move on to item 5, FY25 UPWP and budget. Charlie, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, do you want to ask for a motion for, to open a public hearing?
Sorry. Yep. Thank you. Looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. This is Jim.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So a public hearing is open. So I'll throw it to you, Charlie, to do an intro, and then we'll take any public comments after that.
Yeah, so I believe you had the memo in your packet that described the UPWP process. I don't have it right in front of me, so I'm going to go a little bit from memory. And I'm not planning to go through the document in detail because I care about you all too much. But we went through from February, March, April, the UPWP committee, which Catherine McMahon looked at all the project submissions from the towns. And if folks could mute their mics, if that would help. And we It's a little bit larger budget this year. Typically, we do about 1.25 million in consultant contracts. This is a little bit closer to 1.4. So thanks to Federal Highway for kind of scraping the corners of the bank there to find out that we had a little bit extra money available in this fiscal year. We were able to fit just about everything. There are a couple projects in the UPWP that we'll look at doing for the mid-year. But just the bottom line is we pretty much were able to fit everything in this work program. And I don't know if Catherine or Marshall want to add anything with regard to the UPWP process or the project lists or anything.
That was a pretty good overview, Charlie. I don't have much else to add there.
Okay.
It went very smoothly.
Yeah, thank you to that committee for the hard work that you did. And I'm trying to remember, Mike Bissonette was on there, John Zacconi, Barbara, who else from the board? A number of board members were on that committee as well. So thank you all for your help with that. And then the other part of this is the budget. And I just want to take a moment just to talk about the budget. You'll see we're a little bit positive. We're forecasting a little bit positive. I will say that that budget is based on assumptions as we know them today. And there are definitely possibilities that there could be some negative things that happen to the budget as the state legislature finalizes the budget or budgets for FY21. If you aren't following the state budget process, they are in the process of developing what they're calling a skinny budget for the first quarter of FY21. And then in August, they're talking about going back into session after they have July figures and actually know what came in terms of revenue to adopt the rest of FY21 budget in August, maybe in September. So we're gonna follow that process, and we'll see what impact any of those decisions have on our budget. I'm hopeful that they're not significant, but we won't know until they do the final votes. So I think that's a really long way of saying this is the best budget we can do right now, but we may very well have to come back at some point, probably September, with a revised budget, which would be a little earlier than a mid-year adjustment, or we may hold off until January. But this, I just wanted you to all be aware that we are aware that the budget situation could be a little more dynamic than what we're presenting to you. So happy to take any questions or any other discussion. John, is that you had a question on this?
I do. Just curious, Charlie, they're doing the skinny budget, but the governor is also looking for an 8% decrease sort of across the board in that first quarter. Does that affect us in any way?
That is what we don't know yet. The legislature is going to be taking up the skinny budget in the next 2-3 weeks. And at least of what I can tell immediately, I don't think there's going to be an impact, but again, we're not sure until they actually vote. The points of risk for us, just to get a little bit finer grain, is probably the regional planning grant from the Agency of Commerce. I believe the agency is trying to preserve that funding, but we don't know. I think it is likely that we'll see a 10% cut in that. That would be about a $38,000, $39,000 cut. The transportation seems to be okay, unless VTrans has anything more to add to that. But I haven't heard anything too negative there yet. The only other place that is negative is the clean water funding, because there was a big chunk of that was dependent on rooms and meals revenue, and also property transfer tax. Both of those revenues are down, and so there may be less clean water funding. It's not clear to me how much that might hurt our budget specifically. I expect to probably hold off on some capital projects, but maybe it won't be too bad on our specific budget. So did I answer your question, John?
You did, thank you.
If that's all I have, Mr. Chair, if there are no other questions.
Okay, if there's no other questions. I would open it in case anyone from the public is out there that wants to make a comment. Hearing nothing, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Also moved. This is Garrett.
I'll second Jim.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, public hearing is closed. So next is deliberation and action on the UPWP and budget.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the UPWP and budget as prepared by the staff and the UPWP.
I'll second.
Full of kind of minor changes, nothing real substantive, but just clean up things in the document. And Regina, was there one other thing that is not on that list?
Yeah, two other things. So task 316 is for the next round of the all hazard mitigation plans. We just have the date incorrect in the deliverables. Those need to be done by March of 2022. And then secondly, we do have a new pretty small contract with Vermont Bond Bank to try to map some of the infrastructure investments they've made over the years to try to get a sense of how long those infrastructure investments last. So that is a new contract that will go under 711 something. I think it's going to be 5, but I can't commit to you on that last number right now. And that contract amount is $6,000.
With minor staff corrections as indicated.
Okay.
The seconder agrees.
Okay. Did you get that, Amy? I think so. Any other comments, questions about the UPWP or budget? Hearing none, I'd ask all those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you, staff, and thank you, UPWP committee, for your work on this. Much appreciated. Next, we'll go down, Mr. Roy, your turn to take over. Report of the Board Development Committee.
Well, do you want me to report on this or you want it, Charlie?
Oh, well, please take it away, Mr. Chair.
Okay. The Board Development Committee every year, among its list of duties, is to come up with a slate of officers for the executive committee. We had one wrinkle was that I'm resigning at the end of my term here, so I was no longer able to serve as the immediate past chair. So Andy Montrell was kind enough to step in and make up for my dereliction of duty. We then realized that Barbara had served for 4 years as the at-large member for communities less than 5,000. And there's a term limit of 4 years for those positions. And Bard Hill has been kind enough to step up and agree to participate on the executive committee next year. So we met and have voted to recommend that slate of officers for fiscal year 21.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from anyone?
Who did those bylaws anyway that put in term limits?
And so that'll be an action item at your next meeting.
I
Okay.
think those go way back.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Next is item 7, Clean Water Service Provider Draft Proposal. Charlie or Dan?
Yeah, I'll start off and then we'll see how much detail you want to get into. So just by way of introduction, I think we've talked just about every meeting for the last few months about Act 76 and the most recent update to the Clean Water Act in Vermont, proposing this new process of having regional clean water service providers to work on non-regulatory clean water projects. DEC put out an RFP. Proposals are now due on May 29th. The last time we talked about this, I think the proposals were due May 8th, so it was going to be before this meeting. They moved the deadline back as a result of the COVID situation, and so it's here in front of you for action before we submit it. It has gone through multiple layers of review with all the water quality partners in the basin. This is the direct to lake Basin 5. So the partners, it's been reviewed at the Clean Water Advisory Committee for 2 or 3 meetings. And then the executive committee has taken a look at it also. And I think the proposal is pretty well done now. So we're hoping that you have a chance to look at it. I can scroll to it if you'd like to dig into it in more detail. Or so kind of your pleasure as to if there are any questions on any sections of the proposal, happy to answer those or edit it if needed at this point. But with your vote, we will submit it by next week.
Move to approve. This is Barbara.
Garrett seconds.
Comment, Mr. Chairman, Charlie?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So yes, the proposal has been reviewed by multiple parties, and we've both in the meetings that Charlie referenced, as well as individual phone calls and emails and things like that. It's been a good process of building the relationship, strengthening existing relationships. I want to reference that soliciting letters of support, as well as within those letters, parties indicate whether they are interested in potentially serving on the Basin Water Quality Council. And so far, we've gotten support letters from Friends of Northern Lake Champlain, up in the counties above us, and the Lewis Creek Association, Franklin Natural Resource Conservation District, Winooski Natural Resource Conservation District, and we're getting some other letters starting to trickle in as well too. So been nice to see. So yeah, we'll zip it all up if you guys approve it and go out the door end of next week.
Thank you, Dan. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we take the vote? Hearing none?
I'm sorry, it looks like Garrett has a comment.
Sorry, Garrett.
Not a problem. Mike wasn't on. Excuse me. Compliments on your name change, Mike, to Susan.
I blame any mistake tonight on her.
I just wanted to say that I did read through every bit of it, and it was really well done. Quite impressive. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thanks to Dan on all the hard work on that.
Yeah. Thanks, Garrett. Yeah, absolutely. Great job by you folks. So hearing no other comments, I'd ask all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Item 8, draft Basin 5, Direct to Lake Tactical Basin Draft Comment Letter. Charlie?
Yeah, I think Dan can speak to this. This is also in your packet. Dan?
turn on my mic. Thanks, Charlie. So in your packet, the basin planning process has been going on for, or should I say the update to the Basin 5 plan has been going on for almost a year now. Since February, the Clean Water Advisory Committee, as well as staff, have been reviewing what's called the partner draft, meaning that DEC is sharing it with water quality partners for sort of preliminary comment and analysis. And then the plan is that in July, the state will issue its formal plan. So what we're trying to do here with this, our grant agreement that we have with DEC, they've been providing funding for a couple of years now to do support for the tactical basin planning process. And that obligation there outlined in the memo is that the each RPC provides a written analysis and formal recommendation, including comments from their Board of Commissioners on conformance of the draft tactical basin plan with the goals and objectives of applicable regional plans. So the letter that you see there won't be formally issued until July, but we try to give a draft now, a well-honed draft to DEC staff so that they can obviously see any comments now to address conformance, as well as improve the text of the plan as they see fit in response to our initial analysis. So basically, this is not the final letter. You'll vote on that in July once the formal draft, official public release draft is out. But we like to make sure you guys are comfortable with this draft of the letter before we forward it to DEC staff. So about it.
I move we forward the letter to DEC as prepared.
Second, this is Garrett.
Okay, any comments, discussion about the motion or the letter? Hearing none.
Yes,
all-
I have one comment. This is Jim. If possible, I definitely support the second recommendation, additional recommendations, number 2. The only thing I would suggest is that if possible, try to find more concrete examples, if you can, of what alternatives might exist or how they can be developed to support our case as much as you can. I mean, if you don't have anything more to add to it, fine. But if you can, I would strongly suggest beefing up number 2, because I think it's a big ask. It's a very serious one, and I support it 100%. But it seems like they're not real excited about going along with this. So I think we need to make the case as strong as we can.
Thanks, Jim.
So with that, Jim, would that be sort of perhaps some comments about the cost per pound of phosphorus, a little more detail on that?
Well, what I'm thinking is more that could help, but more the alternatives of how you might be able to do something with farming, or what other ways can we get a better bang for the buck? Yes, the more detail you can put in there of the alternatives to convince them that, yes, there are other ways to do this that will be more cost effective.
Gotcha.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
V-Trans.
V-Trans, okay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Dan. So Charlie, I think we're up to chair and executive director items.
Yes. So the first one, and Mike, feel free to jump in here, but there was discussion at the executive committee about the annual meeting. You know, we would normally have a pretty big gathering in June and have our election of officers that we just discussed earlier. The executive committee is wisely. We had some discussion about moving it to September for the gathering, but I think came to the conclusion, let's just hold off on the gathering this year and go about doing our business virtually as well as we can, and see when things open back up and when we can all get together again in person. So I just wanted, we may sometimes say we're not having an annual meeting. We are still having technically an annual meeting for our bylaws to elect officers in next month. We're just not gathering together to do that like we typically have.
Right, in that meeting, there'll probably be some other agenda items as well.
Yes, yeah, given that we are going to get together anyway, and normally we've had very short business meetings at the annual meeting. We probably will take advantage of us getting together via GoToMeeting or Zoom, and probably have a couple of more items. In particular, the update of 89. I think we want to make sure the board is up to date on where the 89 study is. So I don't, hopefully no question. Garrett, I saw your comment. We actually did have a location. We had a location in June and September, but discretion is a better part of valor there. Legislative update. Yeah, we talked about the budget a little bit earlier. That is, maybe a more significant impact this year, depending on what they do with the budget. They are, and I say they, different committees are starting to take up some different policy initiatives. And so they seem to be trying to get some bills, and it's so mixed up this year. Like, when is crossover? I'm not sure there's a formal crossover anymore, but they do seem to be trying to move some bills. And so if anyone hears of something moving that you think we ought to be concerned about, please let me know. It's definitely a little harder to track what is moving. I think there was a housing bill that Senate Economic Development was working on that may be moving. I'd be surprised if there isn't an economic development bill. There is some discussion that maybe part of the Act 250 bill might get into one of those two previous bills I just mentioned. And other than that, I'm not too aware of anything else significant that's getting talked about with regard to us. There are other things going on for sure. But let me know and tonight or later on if you are concerned about anything that might be moving that we should pay closer attention to. Definitely harder to track what's going on in this environment. Any quick reactions or things we should watch out for on people's mind?
Just the $400 billion COVID relief bill. But you can do that with your hand tied behind your back.
Yeah, that definitely passed over my pay grade for sure. I I appreciate the expectation though that we could fix that. Well,
I was thinking more along the lines of they may be looking to regional partners to help them with things, or
yes,
if something serious happens to it, there is a provision for nonprofits for some relief. I don't know if we qualify for it. Maybe Elaine knows, but I don't.
Yeah, I have taken a look at the federal legislation that's coming out. I know the governor just proposed using a bunch of the federal funds the state got today in some different ways. I haven't seen the details yet to know if there'd be any assistance to the RPC, and it's really hard to tell what assistance we need yet. So far in this fiscal year, we haven't had a negative impact. But we'll definitely keep monitoring the situation. So stay tuned. We should definitely know more because the legislature will have voted on the skinny budget by our next meeting. In terms of COVID impacts on our operations as the RPC on the staff, just to let you know, and hopefully this is not a surprise, we're all working remotely. And that is going pretty well. I think the biggest impact on our operations is the fact that a lot of public meetings have stopped happening. And so just a heads up, I think we're starting to have more conversations with individual towns where we're working on projects with them about, if and how to have public meetings to review those individual projects. So that is really kind of the biggest thing in front of us. And I think we need to just figure out how to embrace the new normal and do things more virtually. I think we are seeing some pretty significant or good levels of participation in the virtual meetings, because in one way they are easier to plug into if you have the technology. So I don't know if any questions on what's happening with our operations. We are starting to plan for the probability that our office will open up at least in part, or maybe with partial staff in the coming weeks. We expect the state to loosen up the restrictions, and we're getting ready with the protocols in place, to make sure things are getting cleaned and people are taking their temperatures, et cetera. So I don't know if there's any questions or feedback on that.
This is Bart. One comment and a question. I'm informed by examples like Vermont Legal Aid was recently a victim of ransomware. And so one of the things that sometimes happens when we get scattered is different exposure to things like ransomware, but also security and just IT infrastructure bandwidth, and just wondering for us whether that's created any challenges for staff, just in terms of the technology and our ability to maintain security.
Yeah, probably in the first few days, we had some issues because we didn't have enough VPN licenses. And so we contract with Tech Group to provide more technology support. And we just got more VPN licenses, and I think have not had an issue to date. I'm going to knock on some wood somewhere. Now you may have just jinxed us, I don't know, but so far so good.
Charlie, VPN?
Virtual private network. So in essence, you're signing into the RPC network, so we can see all of our files are in one place, and it's a little more secure because it's actually monitored actively by Tech Group, and that's where all the the anti spam and software and all those things are housed, right? So
If I could chime in here, a VPN creates a secure tunnel through the internet for a company to go from where they are to where the server is. It's a commonly accepted practice in enterprise, very secure. That's about all they can do.
Yeah, Bart, again, that seems to be kind of the gold standard. State government has done the same with hundreds or thousands of workers who abruptly are scattered around the state.
And
I
Garrett,
just know what the acronym stood for.
Garrett, you had a question or comment?
Comment. I just wanted to say, having spent a lot of time with the folks there, Pam and the guys at Tech Group have really impressed me with how on top of things they are. And compared to so many of my clients, I'm a programmer for those who don't know, you guys really have it together. So well done.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I should have said thank you to Pam Brangan, who, is our kind of in-house IT person. It really was pretty seamless. Unfortunately, we were already pretty operable in terms of being able to go remote. Like everybody already had laptops, nobody was still on a desktop. So it was pretty easy to just go from, the occasional time at home to, okay, now we're 5 days a week at home. So, but so far so good. And we're getting through it okay. And then item D on the agenda was just a link we're also tracking and working with the individual municipalities and documenting what each of them are doing in different categories. So if you want to take a look at that link, you can see the latest report on that. Early on, we were updating it almost daily. I think now we're down to maybe a couple times a week if anything changes, or maybe we're down to once a week now. But that's just to let you know what's going on with our municipalities in our region. And then finally on my report, I wanted to give you an update on 89, the 89 study. And I'm going to try to pull up a different screen or pull this onto the screen. Let's see how this works. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I know there's a lot of small type there. This is the basic project schedule of the 89 study. And there's 7 tasks here. That's the 7 green boxes that you probably can't read what they say. But the first couple of tasks were just really doing background work, analyzing existing conditions and that kind of thing. We're now into the first couple meaty tasks of reviewing and trying to finalize the vision and goals for the project. And also, we're just at the beginning of looking at we looked at 7 potential interchange investments. And that's beyond the ones that are already programmed, beyond exit 16 or 17 or 12. What other investments might be made in interchanges, either upgrading existing or adding a new interchange. We're just going through a screening process with the technical and advisory committees right now. Next meeting, we'll bring to you what is in front of the advisory committee to try to make a decision on hopefully what turns into 1 or 2 interchanges to continue looking at. And that's 1 or 2 in addition to seeing what we can do at exit 14. So sorry, I may be too far down in the weeds already, but let us know, or please let me know right now if you have any questions about the 89 study. We will probably start updating you every meeting or maybe every other meeting with this project as it moves forward. I should also let you know, I didn't see if Chris Shaw is plugged into the meeting tonight, but Chris, if you are, we've started a little offline conversation, but I am. Okay, hey Chris. We're going to spend some extra time with South Burlington just because they're kind of the epicenter of 89 and the issues we're seeing with 89 exit 14. And at this point, it looks like exits 13 and 12B look like they might have some potential benefits. And so we'll be in front of the city council there in the next couple of weeks, kind of continuing that conversation with South Burlington City Council. Eleni, did I miss anything? Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered everything. So at this point, we are in the midst of and finalizing, as you said, the first round of the interchange evaluation. And the idea is like we're going to look at those 7 interchanges and, and then basically narrow it down to like maybe a couple of them to move forward to further evaluation, more comprehensive look, and especially the land use side of things, we're going to look at a little bit more closely with the second round of the evaluation. And then once that happens, then hopefully we're going to have, maybe 1 or none or just improvements to existing interchanges that we're going to move forward to evaluate with other, a comprehensive list of other strategies that might include, more transit, we're going to look at the more capacity on our interstate especially between exit 14 and 15 and some other ones. But at this point, next month, hopefully we'll come to you with a little bit more information about those interchanges that we were going to be proposing to the advisory committee for approval. And by then, hopefully, we'll have South Burlington's comments too, which is going to help us make a determination. And I would just kind of basically encourage people to go to the project website. Charlie, if you scroll all the way down to the thank you slide, there is a slide at some point. Yeah, that one. Oh, sorry, I added it to my desktop, but
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. The actual project website is Envision 89. And at that website, we have a lot of information about our public outreach, which is, we're doing a lot of outreach to municipalities and other groups, but you also can actually sign up and you can receive updates and invitations to meetings and other things. So I will encourage you to do that. That's all. Unless you
just
have any
looking
questions.
at the schedule. Yeah, it looks like we have one question from John Zacconi. But just broadly, just in terms of building expectations, the next year is kind of this whole blue phase of evaluation. So probably, this time next year, we should be kind of closing in on the recommendations and have it in front of you for action. Okay, question from John.
Yeah, just curious with the 12B issue, the last time this came up in any significant way, there was a particular issue involving Heinsberg and land use, and I won't go into the details, but it was, they have a particular interest, of course, in that. Can you let us, what's going on down there with them and outreach regarding all of this? I'm just curious. They are kind of the hot button community for 12B and involving anything.
Yeah, that was, Elaine just made a reference to kind of looking at the land use implications of any of these interchanges. And so part of the consultant team is actually taking a focused effort at looking at any secondary growth implications. So we can answer those questions that Heinsberg had. And I'll also mention John Jacinto, Shelburne, or at least Shelburne staff, was also bringing up concerns that there may be some impact on Shelburne as well, of building a 12B interchange. So we will definitely look at those secondary growth impacts and figure out, how negative or positive they are, and what that does in terms of, and that will get factored into the evaluation of any investment strategies. And 12B, Garrett, is I-89 at 116, so it would be a new interchange. Jim Donovan, question?
Yeah, it sounds from everything you're saying that the schedule is pretty much right, going on basically according to schedule, and it has not been affected by any of the stuff going on in the last few months. Is that
That's correct.
good or not?
Yeah, well, pretty much. So we will see. Most of what we've been doing so far has been, kind of the consultant doing analytics in the background. Now, as we're starting some more public meetings, I think we'll see how quickly or slowly that works or not. So this will definitely be a challenging time to be doing this kind of broader public engagement on a big project like this over the next.
We were also kind of lucky that we actually finished the first round of our public meetings just before we got the stay safe, stay home kind of directive. So our last public meeting was in Winooski, March 13th, I believe, or something like that. So we had 3 public meetings, one in January, one in February, one in March, and we just finished just before that. So we got great input that we could use to update our vision and goals. So that was good timing. So we'll see as we move forward how we're gonna get delayed because of public outreach. But at least we finished the first round of both public meetings, which was great.
Yeah, Jeff, you have a question or two?
No, just one. I just want to make sure we're working hard with the impacted municipalities.
Yep.
On this, to make sure that when we're evaluating the alternatives, that we have local buy-in. I'm still smarting from a situation that we ran into with one of the core communities when we did an exit study on the on I-89 exit, and there was a recommendation made, lots of money spent, and then the community rejected it. So we've got to make sure that all the communities are fully participating.
Yep.
And that we get buy-in from the communities for any recommendation. I know that goes without saying, but we spent, you know, over $100,000 the last time, and it was just down the drain because the city council rejected it.
Mm-hmm.
So we've just got to make sure we cover that.
No, I think, yeah, it's really all, yeah. I mean, as you know, with all this work, there's half technical work and analysis. You want to do all the good analytical work, but then the other half, and maybe it's a lot more than half, is kind of the communication in both directions and listening and buy-in. And we have a lot of work to do in that area over the coming months. So this next year is really going to be that engagement process, Jeff. And we definitely share your concern and interest in making sure that we're not wasting the effort, because we are putting a lot of effort into this project, and a lot of it needs to go into the public process and making sure that everybody's able to participate and we hear everybody and we get to the best answer we can get to.
Charlie, I just want to let
Oh.
folks know that I did put the website for the study in the chat. If they want to scroll up and see it, they can copy it from there.
Thank you,
6:41
Regina.
p.m. Thank you.
How, if I do have one more question, if you don't mind, how do we handle a situation where something is good for the region, but not the community doesn't want it?
Yeah, and I think Garrett was just asking a similar question in the chat, and buy-in from the state. So, we probably did not mention that enough. Yeah, so this is very much a partnership with VTrans.
Mhm.
And I think, Jeff, we're trying to balance those interests and making sure we're, you know, addressing both as well as we can. It's hard to tell exactly how it will play out, but I think we're very conscious of the fact that, you know, what might be good for the state or the region may have a negative impact locally, and how do we manage through that or mitigate it, or, you know, are there trade-offs that, yeah, there's some negative impact, but then there's some positive benefits that happen locally. So we're just at the beginning of starting to have some of those conversations. Come on in, the water's warm. So that's the end of my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks, Charlie. Did you want to talk at all about the possibility of moving to a different platform, or just?
Yeah, just curious. You know, when we met a couple months ago, the guys who know a lot more said go to meeting. Just wondering. I've been having staff has done some research and having some debate, and maybe we might go to Zoom. And just wondering at a higher level, not just the basic Zoom, but in a way that's secure and et cetera. Any reactions, positive or negative, to that idea?
This is Jim.
Yeah.
And I'm using Zoom a lot. I'm getting very used to it, but this is the first time I'm using actual GoToMeeting, and it's working fine and pretty easy to use. So I would say either one seems to be fine. Both of these are light years away from what we did last time. So
yeah,
that's my only comment.
Thank you for that. Yes, Teams could not handle what we were trying to do last time. Garrett, you wanted to weigh in on this?
Aside from the voice, which seems to use Teams, but I'm betting Microsoft is supplying it for free and or paying them a lot of money. I've found that the GoToMeeting interface has worked really well. Zoom, which I use with a number of clients, is fine, but I don't know how the costs compare. I'm guessing they're fairly similar, Zoom versus GoToMeeting, but the big piece is that we get complete cross-platform support, whether it be on a tablet or a Mac or whatever, which team didn't do well at.
Exactly.
And I think with the chat feature here, it seems to have worked, especially during your last presentation, Charlie.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, if no other comments, we'll move on to committee and liaison activities and reports, and those reports are in your packet. Does anyone have any comments or questions about those reports? Hearing nothing, I'll go to other business, members' items.
I move we adjourn.
Oh, hang on a second, because I'm just scrolling down here and I see that we've got future agenda topics we want to talk about first.
Oh,
Sorry, Jeff. Charlie, future topic, agenda topics.
For next meeting, we definitely wanted to get deeper, give you some more substance about what's going on with 89. And we have the election and warning the tip hearing for the July meeting. But anything else that we should think about talking about in June? Well, and I guess we'll probably realistically talk about the budget and any implications that come out of comes out of the legislature.
we should handle what we need to do, but don't go out of your way to lengthen summer meetings.
Noted. John, question?
I would take that just to, while we're getting used to the virtual stuff here, we should keep the business that needs to be done. And, you know, you can't really do a 2.5 hour one of these. It just doesn't work. So this is great. We're going to wrap up in about an hour. I think we could all stand a little bit more, but, you know, you start getting into meetings like they can get normally. And so all of the niceties we have, you know, people coming in to explain things to us, which are all great. And I get a lot out of those, but I think there's a trade-off that needs to be made, at least initially, while we all sort of get used to this.
Yeah. And so we probably, the only other thing, and I think, Mr. Chair, you kind of brought up, maybe we'll ask the Secretary Flynn to come in and, you know, particularly if there are any significant changes in transportation funding or projects in our region, sometime over the summer, or maybe September, just so we know, you know, we can have some conversation there if that's appropriate. Mike, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I just thought that it might be good to have Joe come in at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to know sooner than later. We talked about the skinny budget earlier. Everybody was asked to do a quarter. VTrans was given 60 or 60+% of their budget to work with because of the way that they have to spend their budget, which is summertime intensive. So while the other agencies are sort of on hold and trying to figure it out, VTrans should be ahead of where everybody else is simply because of the way they work. And the way they have to schedule. So Joe could probably talk sooner than some of the other secretaries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can check with them. All right, thank you. Members' items? Jeff, you want to make your motion?
Now I move we
I'll
adjourn.
second.
Thank you, everyone, for coming in. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone
Aye.
opposed?
Aye. Thank you.
Have a great
Take care.
night. Enjoy the weather.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Hi, good night.
Night.
Mhm.